Today we have a different kind of story. It's an allegory. I'm Joseph, this is Input English. As you probably know, the Input English channel is dedicated to providing comprehensible input for English language learners. Millions of us learned or tried to learn a language during our school years. Unfortunately, the traditional methods that were used resulted that we knew a lot about these languages, but we couldn't speak them and we couldn't understand them. Millions of people would like to learn to speak English and already have a relatively good English vocabulary. But listening is not so easy, and speaking is even worse. This is why we are here. This is comprehensible input to the rescue. If you can understand what I am saying, listen to these stories and you will improve your English. So today's story is very different than the stories I have previously posted on this channel. This one is an allegory. It has only 4 characters. The principal characters are Martin, who is a 5-year-old boy, and his father, Clarence. Clarence is a college professor. He teaches physics at the local college. He usually teaches the introductory course, which covers classical mechanics and Newtonian physics. Clarence thinks he is very good at what he does, and he enjoys teaching. Clarence and his wife, Becky, have one child, Martin. They are very doting parents. They are very focused on their only child, and they want to give him every opportunity. They also want to be very progressive and modern. So they decided that Martin would not call them mom or dad, father or mother. Martin would call them by their given names. So the family is Clarence, Becky, and Martin. They felt that this was a very egalitarian approach rather than having job titles like mom and dad. This worked out fine in the family, but it did cause some problems for Martin when he went to the 1st grade. The other children thought this way of referring to one's parents was quite odd, and they did not understand. It really put Martin on the spot. While Martin was growing up, his father was thinking ahead, thinking how he could enrich his son's life, and he figured that there would be a natural nexus between his knowledge of Newtonian physics and Martin's need to learn to ride the bicycle. Over a period of years, Clarence developed a curriculum. He wants his son, Martin, to learn the basics. He figures that a didactic approach to riding the bicycle would surely be the best. He structured his curriculum into modules. He developed homework assignments and quizzes that were related to these modules. Modules included friction, lubrication, how levers work, gear ratios, gravity, inertia, centripetal force, and then he was very proud of this module, number 8. He was thrilled that he thought of this one, and that dealt with the materials out of which bicycles were made. He covered steel alloys, aluminum alloys, and carbon fiber. Just before Martin turned 6, Clarence went to the store with measurements that he had taken of his son. Using those measurements, he and the salesperson selected a bicycle for Martin and affixed training wheels on it. When Clarence got home, he hung it on a hook in the garage out of reach because he didn't want his son to try to ride it before he had studied the basics. He showed the bicycle to Martin, who immediately wanted to ride it. But Martin was told, no, we have work to do. And with that, they started the first module. They worked for weeks going through all the didactic information that Clarence wanted to bestow upon his son. Now, Martin didn't really like these lessons. He didn't enjoy them, but he did what he was told. He figured if he could get through all this training by his dad, he would get his bicycle. That's what he wanted. He was willing to put up with this in order to get a bicycle. As this training continued, Clarence thought it was very unfortunate that he had to go to a symposium out of town, and he would be gone for 4 days, including a weekend. He had some special homework assignments he left for his son, Martin. Martin found himself with a little more time on his hands now that he wasn't doing this didactic training. He saw the neighbor boy, Tommy, outside riding his bicycle on the sidewalk. Now, Tommy is 2 years older, but he and Martin are roughly the same size. Martin went outside and watched Tommy riding the bicycle on the sidewalk, but he couldn't figure out how all the things that he had been learning related to what Tommy was doing. Tommy stopped to talk to him. They knew each other. They'd been neighbors for a couple of years, and they started talking about riding the bicycle. Martin explained that he was studying to ride the bicycle. Tommy said, "Studying what?" At this point, Martin really didn't know what to say, so he quoted his father. He said, "The basics," and he smiled. He was happy to have remembered what he was studying. He was studying the basics. Tommy said, "The basics? That's crazy. Do you want to learn how to ride the bicycle?" Martin said, "Yes." At that point, Tommy held his bike and suggested that Martin sit on the seat while Tommy held it. He showed him where to put his feet, not on the pedals, and then the two of them went down the sidewalk with Tommy providing balance. Initially, it was very awkward. The movements of the handlebars were very clumsy, but very quickly they smoothed out. Other than pushing and steadying, Tommy didn't say anything. After they'd been doing this for a while, Tommy found that he could briefly let go and Martin would not fall over. After that, they added the pedals. Again, over time, Tommy discovered that he could let go for longer and longer periods of time, and Martin could maintain balance. The next day, they continued this process, and it was late in the morning on the second day that Martin had mastered his ability to get on the bike, start pedaling, and not fall over. He went the length of the block, turned the bicycle around, and came back. Having done this, he went inside and called his mom to show her what he had done. He demonstrated his skills, and she was thrilled. She said, "It's time to get your bicycle down." They went to the garage, and she struggled, but eventually pulled the bicycle off the hook and brought it out. She presented it to her son so that he could ride it on the sidewalk. He stared at the training wheels. He said, "I don't think I need those." His mom said, "No, you don't, but I'm not sure I can take them off." She studied the bike and saw that the training wheels were held on by a nut. So she went indoors, and in a drawer, she found an adjustable wrench. She brought it out and laid the bicycle down in the grass. She struggled to loosen the nut, and to herself she said, "Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey." She was trying to remember which way to turn the nut to loosen it. Lefty-loosey. Okay, we have to turn it this way. After a lot of effort, the nut released, and she was able to pull the training wheel off the bike. She tightened that nut and using righty-tighty, tightened it with the wrench. She then flipped the bike over, very happy with herself, and did the same thing on the other side. What she discovered is that the second side was almost effortless. When she took off the right wheel, she learned the skill. When she took off the left training wheel, she just repeated it, and it was super easy. With that, she presented the bike to Martin, who took it out to the sidewalk and repeated his riding skills on the sidewalk. He got on his own bicycle, started riding, went to the end of the block, stopped, got off, turned the bike around, and returned. Both mother and son were proud of these accomplishments. Martin rode the bike over the weekend, and his mom was able to take him out to the park where he could ride long distances. When Clarence got home, mother and son were very excited to show him what had happened while he was gone. Clarence was astonished to see his son, Martin, wheel the bicycle with no training wheels out to the sidewalk. Before he could say anything, Martin got on the bike and rode to the end of the block. He turned around and came back. He did the usual demonstration on the sidewalk. Clarence was very proud of his son. He was also very satisfied that all the weeks of hard work that he had put into building those modules and teaching Martin the basics had paid off. So when I began the story, I pointed out that it was an allegory. So an allegory can be many different things. Often it is a story, but it could be a picture or even a poem. Allegories have hidden meaning or a hidden message. The messages may be hidden for a specific reason. It may be safer to deliver a message in an allegorical way as opposed to a literal way. Sometimes allegories have hidden messages or hidden meanings that are political or religious. This story about Martin and Clarence had no hidden religious or political meaning at all, but it was still an allegory. It was allegorical to language learning. With language learning, frequently authority figures assure us that we need to study the basics. In school, we are compelled to believe that because the teachers are in a position that we trust them. Knowing that this simple little story of a boy learning to ride a bicycle is allegorical to language learning allows you to see that his friend Tommy is advocating comprehensible input. The allegory also shows that the father, Clarence, deeply believes his approach, and when Martin learned to ride the bicycle successfully, he attributed the success to all those traditional lessons he had given Martin. This channel is all about comprehensible input because the evidence shows that studying the basics does not help us become fluent or proficient in our target language. I invite comments below, and if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.